statement just made. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, President. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Loué soit Dieu le Tout-Puissant.
Praise be to Almighty God, He who has allowed us to come together in this magnificent city of New York in order to participate in this meeting of our organization. President of the 76th session of the General Assembly, Your Excellency, Majesties, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, Ministers, Heads of Delegation, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I wish at the outset to convey my warm congratulations to His Excellency Mr. Abdullah Shahid on his outstanding election to the presidency of the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Burundi assures you, Mr. President, of its full, unwavering cooperation and wishes you every success and great fortune as you discharge your mandate, both professionally and personally. I am also delighted to convey the deep gratitude of my delegation to your predecessor, Ambassador Volkan Bozkır, on his excellent work conducted despite conditions rendered incredibly difficult by the COVID-19 pandemic. Allow me to take this same opportunity to convey my sincere appreciation to His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, for the results he achieved in an international context marked by several grave crises and a fragile, tottering global economy. I wish him every success and good health as he discharges his second mandate. I also wish to thank the government and the people of the United States of America, particularly those of the city of New York, for the welcome and unparalleled hospitality we have been shown. Excellencies, Secretary General, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, this 76th session of the General Assembly is being held at a time when Burundi will celebrate the 60th anniversary of its independence and of its accession to the United Nations family. That celebration will be held next year. Consequently, it is the time to recall that the UN has played a major role in Burundi's history because since the end of the First World War, from the end of the First World War, Burundi was managed under the aegis of the League of Nations and then the United Nations. Poor administration of the colonial period had negative consequences for Burundi, which brought with them, at the very dawn of independence, social conflicts and several massacres whose wounds still struggle to heal. As the central theme of our general debate highlights, we do indeed need to return hope to our citizens. In Burundi, this means returning hope to our citizens not only in the face of the devastating consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also returning hope to our citizens following the consequences of the series of crises that have unfolded in our country in full impunity. Consequently, this regular session of the General Assembly arrives for me at an opportune moment for my country, Burundi, because it provides us with a pleasant opportunity to share with this illustrious assembly the significant progress made by Burundi on the national, regional, and international stage. As things stand, the restoration of peace, security, stability, and social cohesion is a reality in Burundi. The only enemy which remains a threat to citizens, in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is an enemy common to us all, is poverty. Alongside all our citizens, we have taken up the fight against poverty in order to achieve our ultimate goal, the well-being of Burundi's people. To achieve that goal, we have pinpointed a number of priorities, which we have enshrined in the roadmap entitled the Burundi National Development Plan 2018-2027. This is an ambitious and transformative program which could well expedite the socioeconomic development process which has been underway since 2018. Allow me first to turn to good governance and social justice. To achieve these goals, the fight against corruption, misappropriation, and the fight against impunity are among the priorities of a government known to be responsible and hard-working. As regards the fight against impunity and the prevention of social conflicts, Burundi has honed local justice mechanisms in order to allow all Burundi's people to have quick and equal access to equitable justice. Moreover, efforts have been made to ensure that we have a genuinely independent and impartial judiciary. We have sought to achieve this goal by rendering the Superior Council of the Judiciary operational. We should underscore here that as part of correcting the grave defects of the past, the government of Burundi is currently leading a process of transitional justice in order to aid all victims in Burundi. As part of managing the security situation, we wish to give particular emphasis to the issue of terrorism. Where this matter is concerned, Mr. President, it cannot be denied that success has been achieved. However, at the same time, we do need to humbly acknowledge that we are far from having developed a common, adequate, and effective strategy to eradicate this scourge. In strategic terms, of course, terrorism cannot be justified. I remain convinced that beyond the military action that is necessary, the effective fight against terrorism involves fighting against radicalization, whose breeding ground is ignorance, poverty, youth unemployment, and illiteracy. The UN should undertake initiatives to combat poverty and issue strict sanctions against terrorist groups and all those who support them. As far as we're concerned, we are concerned by the proliferation of terrorism in the sub-region, whose leaders, such as the leaders of the ADF and the Tabara network, are located in the east of the DRC. They recruit young unemployed people and blindly kill peaceful innocent citizens. We're particularly worried about these networks. I remain convinced that these groups constitute a threat not only for our region but also for humankind as a whole. Consequently, we must pool our strengths and fight against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. And we believe that this fight must be conducted with a greater sense of determination and greater solidarity. It is against this backdrop that since 2007, my country has made available to the United Nations Organization and the African Union troops and police to contribute to restoring security and allowing peace to flower in certain countries who need this to be the case. such as Somalia and the Central African Republic. As regards human rights issues, Burundi firmly believes that human rights must be protected by clear governance mechanisms, clear security, and clear equitable justice mechanisms. As part of monitoring the implementation of the principles of human rights protection, the international community must accede to the fundamental principles of universality, transparency, impartiality, non-selectivity, non-politicization, and objectiveness. It must also reject a policy of double standards when dealing with human rights issues. In this regard, Burundi believes that the best way to promote and protect human rights is to work driven forward by cooperation, dialogue, technical assistance, and capacity building, and the strengthening of national mechanisms which focus on human rights issues. We'd like to take this opportunity to call upon certain partners, namely those within the United Nations Human Rights Council, to properly, fairly, and responsibly interpret Burundi's efforts alongside the United Nations and to give them their proper weight. Any act looking to single out Burundi by placing it under special human rights mechanisms is quite simply counterproductive. As you are aware, Burundi has national mechanisms which are able to defend, promote, and protect human rights. We have the Independent National Human Rights Commission that has just reclaimed its A status. We also have the National Observatory for the Prevention and Eradication of Genocide, War Crimes, and Other Crimes Against Humanity. And we have the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the National Council for National Unity, the Lands and Other Goods Commission, and the Ombudsman. In practice, the government has focused and does focus on the protection of human rights, the respect of democratic principles, and the freedoms of opinion, expression, and of the press. A great deal of work has been done thanks to the institution of a dialogue, an ongoing dialogue between political parties, media, and public authorities. This process of dialogue has allowed us to open a number of media institutions that had been closed during the skirmishes and insurrection of 2015. We've also freed more than 5,000 prisoners by way of presidential partners. We've seen the participation of political parties and civil society in the management of the country's social and political life. Mr. President, Majesty, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Turning now to socioeconomic issues, Burundi, like other countries, cannot achieve development without resolving issues of healthcare, education, and the management of particular social groups such as young people, women, vulnerable peoples, and those suffering from poverty. As far as healthcare is concerned, the COVID-19 pandemic has arrived in addition to other illnesses raging throughout the country, such as malaria, HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and many others which are of concern to the government of Burundi. As regards the COVID-19 pandemic, since the arrival of the first cases of the pandemic, Burundi has taken preventative and response measures, and all of our strategies have made it possible to keep our positivity rate under 3% and to avoid high prevalence of serious COVID cases. However, the complex nature of the virus means that all the nations of the world must engage in more research and show greater displays of genius to find a solidarity-based, collective, and sustainable solution, even lasting solution to this pandemic, which is sowing chaos throughout humankind. In the same vein, Burundi is appealing for international solidarity to aid citizens suffering from other illnesses, such as those cited above, which hinder their attempts to ensure their economic development. With this in mind, the government of Burundi has a policy of free healthcare for children under 5 and for women who give birth in public hospitals and clinics. Moreover, we have committed to providing each commune with at least one hospital to guarantee that healthcare is never far away from the Burundian people. As part of this effective economic development, our priority is first and foremost food and security. We're aiming to ensure that every mouth has food and every citizen has the income necessary to allow it to meet other basic needs. Consequently, the state of Burundi has committed to supporting local cooperatives as they fight against poverty in all areas of the country. This policy has made Burundi one of the few countries that does not import foodstuffs. Our other priority is education. Education for all is a principle enshrined in the United Nations agenda, and my country finds education for all to be a prerequisite for sustainable development and its agenda. We have guaranteed free basic education to allow every child to attend school, whatever his or her social status. It is in this same vein that we decided to equip every local authority with a school and a teacher training school. We have also looked to and continue to look to reform our education system to provide people with technical and professional training. This will allow us to have young people that are technically capable and multi-skilled and therefore able to conduct economic activity in all sectors. As regards social protection, here, we're looking at issues of youth employability, the employability of women, and improving the living conditions of persons in vulnerable situations. In order to achieve these goals, we're encouraging young people to demonstrate imagination, to launch their own development projects. However, at the same time, Burundi has launched a far-reaching program for economic empowerment and youth employment. And we've created the Youth Investment Bank and the Women Investment Bank. Moreover, in order to achieve these goals, where employment and development are concerned, the state of Burundi has the Stimulus Guarantee and Support Fund, the FIGA. This provides guarantees for lucrative projects launched and managed by young people and women. In addition to the aforementioned, Burundi is also focusing on the repatriation of refugees and the care of retired persons. Thanks to peace and security that have now returned to the country, Burundi's refugees and political actors are returning en masse to the country and are welcomed with love and dignity. Between July 2020 and today, more than 75,000 refugees have voluntarily returned to the country. Moreover, we have 50,000 Burundian people that have returned. Not doing so under the aegis of the United Nations. Regarding retired persons, our primary aim here is to care for older persons in general by guaranteeing them medical care and improving their pensions. To return hope to all citizens, the government this year launched a national program for peace enhancement, social stability, and the promotion of economic growth. This program, I'm sure, will enjoy the support of all Burundi's development partners to boost the socioeconomic development of our country, to enhance peace, and to guarantee Burundi's citizens hope after protracted periods of conflict. Another area on which we must all focus if we are to achieve sustainable development, and an area to which Burundi attaches great importance, is environmental protection. It has acceded to around 20 international conventions in the field. In this context, Burundi is doing everything it can to mobilize financing for projects linked to biodiversity, water filtration, soil protection, the protection of the ozone layer, and the eradication of organic pollutants, namely through its ambitious project Ue Burundi Rombaye, which means Burundi covered end to end. Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of diplomacy and cooperation, Burundi has committed to normalizing and promoting friendly relations and the relationship of cooperation with its bilateral and multilateral partners. It has committed to reclaiming its rightful place in the family of nations. On this matter, my country once again commends the historic decision of the United Nations Security Council and of the African Union Peace and Security Council to withdraw Burundi from their political agendas, by way of recognizing that the country has returned to peace, security, and lasting stability. Moreover, Burundi welcomes progress already made in the process of normalizing its friendly relations and its relationship of cooperation with the European Union and its member states, and this through a political dialogue undertaken in a constructive spirit and on the basis of respect between the two parties. Where the continent is concerned, our country is delighted to have ratified the agreement creating the African Continental Free Trade Area. The ultimate goal of this area is to integrate all 55 states of the African Union within one free trade bloc. All of this will achieve the goals outlined in Agenda 2063, which aims to create a continental market with the free movement of people, goods, and services, so crucial for the strengthening of economic integration. Consequently, Burundi, alongside Tanzania and the Democratic Republic of Congo, has placed itself in a better position to achieve all the aforementioned goals by launching the railway project which will link the port of Dar es Salaam to Burundi and the east of DRC. Before concluding, Mr. President, on an international level, Burundi supports the action undertaken by the United Nations Secretary General to promote United Nations reform in order to breathe new life into this common organization and to render it more effective, more efficient, more accountable, and closer to the world's people. And we enthusiastically welcome his report on the common agenda, which he believes to be the starting point for our joint efforts. With this in mind, given that we are the only continent not represented in the group of permanent members of the Security Council, and given that we are, as a continent, underrepresented in the category of non-permanent members, Africa continues to weather the historic injustice of being excluded from this crucially important body for us all. To conclude, Mr. President, the state of Burundi reiterates its staunch commitment to the principles and values enshrined in the United Nations Charter, such as the sovereign equality of states, territorial integrity, non-aggression, political independence, and the resolution of disputes by peaceful means. Moreover, the state of Burundi renews its faith in fundamental human rights, in social justice, in dignity, in the value of human beings, in the equality of men and women in all their rights, as well as in the equality of nations. I thank you for your kind attention. May God bless you all. Many thanks indeed.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Burundi for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency.